Hello wonderful people, it's Wild here and happy Halloween! In today's video I'm going to be showing you over 50 ideas and decorations you can use to spruce up your world for the spooky season. All of these ideas are survival friendly and I'll be showing you everything from redstone creations to banners and decorations you can use inside and outside of your builds. I'll show you the materials you'll need for each of these ideas before we get building. So let's get started. For the first grave, here are the materials we'll need. I've got netherite armor here, but if you don't have access to netherite armor to use in decorations like this, you could use leather armor stained black. I'm going to start by digging out a 3-long rectangle and replacing it with some coarse dirt. Then we'll create the headstone like this. I'm going to grab out my candles and my flint and steel now, and I'm placing a candle on top of each of the iron bars. Then we've got our armor stand with our wither skeleton skull, and then our netherite armor. This next simple grave design just uses a few materials, and you can make several of these using the same or different kinds of wood. I'm flipping up one of these trapdoors here, and then on my sign I'm just going to have R, I, and P, but you could put some other details on there if you'd like. This next grave almost looks as if a zombie has crawled right out of it. I'm going to start by digging out a 2x3 rectangle like this, and I'm going to place in a couple pieces of dirt here like that. Then in these lower sections I'll break them and put some more of this dirt in. There we go. Got a couple trapdoors going in, one of the trapdoors going off to the side, and then finally for the tombstone. Just simple like that. This next design is a little bit more elaborate and we'll be using an anvil here. I'll start by placing down my cobble deep slate slabs, and let's build up the gravestone at the back. I'm then going to surround it with some chains. And on this sign I'm going with a spruce sign, and I'm going to add a name to this one. Let's add Mr. Hyde. And we'll add a year. But let's make it incomplete, 1867 to, ooh, and who knows when. Spooky. For our fifth grave design, we're going to have a pot with a dead bush in it as well. Another great option would be to use a wither rose here. We'll start by placing in the smooth stone, and let's make the headstone at the back next. Topping it off with 3 chains. Got some iron bars going all the way around. We'll add in our sign next. I'm going to go with R-I-P on this one. And our flower pot with a dead bush. For this 6th grave design, we're going to make it look like we're looking into an infinite abyss, and for this we'll need some glass. I'm going to start by digging out my hole, which will be 11 blocks deep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm then going to make it 3 long in total, so I've got to dig out an extra 2 blocks like this. You're going to need some stone here, and the amount of stone you'll need will depend on where you've dug your hole, but we just want to line the hole so we're one below the top level here with stone. This just gives it a cleaner look. Okay, now that we've got our hole prepped, I'm going to come down to the bottom and place in 3 black concrete. Then I'll alternate between black stained glass and green stained glass like this. you should find that you finish one below the top on a layer of black stained glass, and you can see it looks like the hole goes on forever. Now for the rest of the decorations. For the grave, I'm just using a cauldron and anvil in a wall on top. Then we're going to need to create the coffin itself, and for this we're using some trapdoors. And I've got some temporary blocks here that's going to make it easier to build. And of course I want to have the lid of this coffin open so that way you can look down into the abyss below. And then for our final detail, I'm grabbing out some glow ink, and we're going to put a sign on here with, I think, RIP on this grave, and some glow ink to make it stand out. And that looks fantastic. For this stack of jack-o'-lanterns, we're going to be using an armor stand and carved pumpkins to make some smaller pumpkins alongside our larger one. I'm going to start by digging out a 2x1 2 deep hole, and I'm placing a bed at the bottom. Now I've happened to got a purple bed here, but you could use any colour you like. I'm placing an armor stand in here with a carved pumpkin on top, and on one side I'm going to place in a acacia fence. I'm going to need to grab out, I put a carved pumpkin on my head. I'm going to need to grab out a piston and something to power the piston next. And I'm just going to place this in here next to my carved pumpkin on an armor stand. And I'll just power it like that. And you can see it's kind of pushed it halfway along, and I can remove the fence now. Next, I'm going to grab whatever block you've got for your ground, so in my case, grass, and I'm placing it above the hole like this. I'm going to grab these pistons again, and you can do this one by one or at the same time like I am, and I'm just going to push this ground block back into the ground like this, so that we just have our pumpkin sitting above here. I'm going to place in my jack-o'-lantern next. I think I might have that about here, and I'm going to add in one more of these smaller carved pumpkins. This time I'm just going to place it on a bed here. I'm going to grab out my armor stand and place it here, and we need our carved pumpkin, just like that. And once again I'm going to need to use a piston just to push this block back into place. Like that. Now to decorate around these pumpkins, I'm going to go in with a couple of ferns, and if I grab out the rest of my supplies here, I'm going to place some cobwebs just around these pumpkins, and then to finish it off, a sea pickle on top of here. For our jack-o'-lantern garland, we're going to be using some decorated pots. Now I've gone with the one with the skull design, but you could use your favourite design here. I'm going to start by placing in my decorated pots, spaced 11 apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There we go, we've got an 11 block gap in between them. Now for each of these posts, I'm going to place a cobble deep slate wall, build up 3 high with my fences, another cobble deep slate wall, and 3 high again, and finish with a flower pot on top. Now I need to connect these up. So I'm going to place in some fences coming off of here like this, come across another 3 and come down. I'll do the same on this side now. And now I can just connect them up like that. Now for the pumpkin garland itself, I'm going to grab out my jack-o'-lanterns, and I'm going to create a pattern just alternating between lime glass, jack-o'-lantern, purple glass, jack-o'-lantern, lime glass, jack-o'-lantern, and so forth. Let's take a step back and have a look at what we've got so far. For our final detail, we're going to add some flags on top using some purple wool. You could also use a mixture of other Halloween coloured wools if you'd like, but it's important that you have your flags all flying in the same direction. And there we have it. To create this spooky scarecrow, we're going to make some banners, but let's first create the base for the scarecrow. I'm going to place a spruce fence with a hay bale and a jack-o'-lantern on top. For our scarecrow's hat, I'm using a spruce slab and I'm placing 4 trapdoors onto that slab. And then for his arms, we've got some fences. Let's grab out our other supplies now for making the banner and adding the details. So I've got my loom here. For this banner, I'm going to start by adding in a brown bumpy border on the bottom like that, as well as a brown circle in the center. Then I'm going to grab out my green and add a slash across one side like this. So you can see it's the half going across one side. Then I'm going to grab it back out the brown and add a square at the top. And our last 2 patterns are going in with green. I've got this here border that goes around the edge, and then finally a gradient over the top. And I think I might have it coming down from the top for this one. Now you can have your banner looking any way you like. The aim is to have it look like it's splattered with mud. So if you're building several of these, you can make each banner different. I'm going to place a banner on the front and back of our scarecrow here, as well as a skull in one hand and 3 candles in the other. And of course I've got to light those with my flint and steel. For this first bat banner design, we're going to start with a black base. Then you'll need 1 black die and then 5 of your background colors. So I'm going with orange. I'm going to start by placing in an orange circle in the center. Then I'll have a black stripe going up the center as well. Next, I'm going to have 2 of these orange points going down. And the reason I'm using 2 of those is it'll make it a little bit more of a bold line. That way we can really see the shape of our bat. Then to finish it off, I have 2 of these bumpy orange borders on the bottom, and here's our bat. For this second bat banner design, we're going to start with the base color that we want behind our bat, and we'll also need 2 black die and 4 die the same color as our banner base. I'm going to start by placing one of these larger half sections of the banner in black. Then we've got a purple circle going on top, followed by a black center stripe, and the rest of the details we'll be putting in are in purple. We have a diamond pointing down from the top like that, and then we have 2 of these borders at the bottom to add the classic bat wing shape. For our enchanted dragon's head table, we're going to create the table first. You'll also need a lever as well, and then we're going to create the spiral using glass. Now I've got about 7 of each of my glass types, but the amount you'll need will just depend on how large you end up making your spiral. I'm starting by creating the table here first. I'm then going to dig underneath here like this, so I can place in a lever and flick it, and I can then fill up the ground around it. I'm going to place in some trapdoors next, and place our dragon's head in. By placing the lever underneath this block, you can see our dragon's head start chomping away like that. Let's go in with a couple of cobwebs here. There we go. And now let's grab out our supplies to make the spiral. I've also got some end rods here. You're going to need some sort of temporary block, and what we're doing is creating a sort of guide for our spiral to follow as we go around the build. So I'm just going up a couple layers at a time, going around in a natural shape. And if your shape is different to mine, that's totally okay. You just want to end up with a spiral shape that you're happy with. You can go up as high as you like and out as wide as you like. I'm going to start spiraling mine right up to the top now like this, and I'm going to take a step back and check I like the shape. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to place in a few of these glass panes going around. Let's add one more here, I think, and some of the black ones. Now if you don't have access to end rods, you could switch this out for some white glass. The reason I like using end rods here is they add a lovely glow to the spiral. And finally, let's go in with these end rods. What's important is that you don't have the glass touching one another. So if I was to place a purple glass or a black glass right here, you can see it connects up and you don't get the magical particle effect. And one more end rod here. Okay, I think I'm happy with that now, so I'm going to go ahead and break my spiral glide. With that broken, I can take a step back and check I like the spiral shape. And once you've got that spiral shape removed, you can really see how the glass looks. So you can always move them around. I think I might move these up and back a little bit. Let's check how that's affected the spiral shape. I think that looks a bit better, and let's move this one up a little bit higher. See how you can now see that it spirals up into the sky and there's less particles as it gets closer to the top. For our next pumpkin patch design, I've come to the back end of my pumpkin patch and we're going to be expanding it a little bit. So what I do when I'm creating any pumpkin patch is I start by placing in my water. So for this larger pumpkin patch, I've placed them in little groups just like this, dotted about my area. Then I start surrounding the water area with some hoed ground. And now I like to go with a nice natural shape for this. So I start building out and you can see I've got some bits more attached. I've got some off to more of one side and I'm linking it up to other sections of the pumpkin patch. And so I'm just going to muddle around until I end up with a shape that I'm happy with, and I think that looks pretty good. Once I've got the shape laid out, I'm going to start planting a few of these pumpkins. And I only put a few in each space because I like to have some of this dirt showing here. So let's get these pumpkins to grow now. Now that I've got all of these pumpkins grown, I'm going to place in just a couple more pumpkins. You could cover up your water source with one if you like, although because we've gone with the dark oak trapdoor here, it blends in nicely. But I'll just add in a few more here and there, and I think that's good. Next, I'm going to go in with some sea pickles and I'm going to place these on a couple of the pumpkins. See how they just add a little bit of dimension to these pumpkins and give them a bit more of a realistic look. To finish off my pumpkin patch design, I always go in with some spooky cobwebs. If you're building this pumpkin patch design for fall rather than Halloween, you might want to leave these cobwebs out, but for Halloween they are the perfect finishing touch. And if we look from above my pumpkin patch here, it's always a nice idea to have a pathway winding through in areas where there are more pumpkins planted and little gaps. You can see I've also clustered together the cobwebs into little groups. For this next Halloween build, we're going to add in some hidden skulk screeches. Now you can hear I've already got a couple placed around my pathway here, but I'm going to add one more. So I'm just placing in the screecher with a sensor nearby and covering it up with the grass blocks. So now if we head to the start of my pathway, you can see it adds a really atmospheric feel to my haunted house. So spooky. For this magical carpet, we're going to be using some end chests. I've also got some orange, purple and green carpet here. I'm going to start by placing in my end chests just in a little pattern like this. Now depending on the size of your rug, you could have more or less chests. You can already see the magical spirals. Now I'm going to create a pattern for my rug, but you could create any pattern you like. And finally the green. And you can see the magical spiraling particles above the rug. This magical witch's setup would be perfect alongside that enchanted rug. We're going to be using a respawn anchor here. I'm going to start by digging one into the ground and placing in a campfire, and I'm placing my respawn anchor on top of this. I've got a glowstone and you can see how it makes it spiral. I'm going to add in some dark oak trapdoors next, just to cover up the sides of that respawn anchor. And I'm going to have a magic wand over to one side, like this. Next Next, let's create a little table, just using some dark oak. There we go. And I'm going to place an amethyst cluster to tie in with the purple and some candles on here. And let's grab out my flint and steel and light that. For this head in a jar on a shelf, we're going to start by creating the shelf base as well as our head in the jar. I'm going to start by placing 4 oak planks along the back like this. I'm going to dig out a hole on one side in front of here and place in an oak slab with an armor stand and a zombie head on top. And I've got an oak plank to one side. I'm going to use a piston now, which I'll need to prop up above here. And I'm going to be pushing an oak plank back down so it's level with this whole bench top. Just like that, and you can see how it looks like the head is floating. I'm going to use this same technique, this time with some lime stained glass, to push the jar on top of our head like that. Let's create the rest of the bench now. I'm going to add in some oak stairs and slabs. Then I'm going to grab out my trapdoors, and I'm going to come up 3 high on either side. Then we're adding a shelf on top of here. And I'm raising it 1 up above the height of the jar like this, so it has a slight curve in the shelf. Let's grab out the rest of these supplies now, and we're going to do our decorating. So behind the jar of our head, I'm going to add in a bookshelf. I'm using some of these chisel bookshelves, and I'll place a few books in each one. I like to leave a few gaps free. There we go. I'm going to place a skull up top here as well as some cobwebs in here and here. For the cork on our bottle, I'm going to be using a brown mushroom block, and I'm going to set a bone off to one side. And then we've got some sea pickles here and here. Now remember, these bookshelves are going to be disguised by our walls, so let's have a look at how that would work. So you can see here that this shelf sits flush with the wall, and that the bookshelves are hidden in line with the wall here. That way it all blends into one piece. For this magical witch's kitchen, we're going to start by creating the campfires and table, and then we'll add in the details. But let's grab out all of our supplies. Now I've got a little bit of gravel here. I'm going to start by creating a rough base, just marking out kind of a bumpy circular shape like this. I'm going to add in gravel until I'm happy with the shape, and if yours isn't exactly the same as mine, that's totally okay. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I can always come back and add in some more as I build. Now let's make the campfire. So I'm going to start by placing in some fences spaced 3 apart like this, and I'm going to build them up so a total of 4 high. Then I'll go over the top with some dark oak slabs, and I'm hanging down 2 sets of 2 chains. On one I'll place a cauldron, and on the other I've got a decorated pot with this skull pattern. Now let's create a little table on this side. So for this I'm going to place a stair like that, and I might move this one out from here. And you can always move around your table to different locations depending on the setup of your area, but I like mine here. I'm going to place my campfires underneath both of my pots here, and let's grab out the rest of our decorating supplies. I'm going to place some lava in this cauldron here, and I put the skull on my head, but I'm going to place this down over to the side. There we go. I'm going to go in with some cobwebs next. I've got a couple of turtle eggs, and I'm going to place a spider eye over on this side. Now let's go and check out some more decorations to use in your Halloween builds. I've turned on shaders now to really enhance that spooky vibe, and let's take a walk along this pathway and check out the decorations. Here I've got one lighting option using some jack-o'-lanterns and a jack-o'-lantern banner. Another lighting option I've used throughout my spooky builds are these floating skull lanterns. They really look very spooky. Over here I've got another option for a grave, and in this one there is a zombie. Ooh. And we can take a walk through these petrified trees. They're a really great way to frame a spooky build like a haunted house. Now as we walk past these ghosts where I've used some of these custom banners, we arrive at a graveyard, and here are some more options for graves you can create. Over this side I have another option for a witch's kitchen with a bubbling cauldron brewing there. And if we come up this way towards the haunted house, you can see there is a bowl of candy for the trick-or-treaters. Let's head inside. Here I've got another option for a head in a jar. And ooh, I don't want to know what's happening on this side of this haunted house. Looks pretty creepy to me. Over here we are doing some potion brewing in my little cauldron. And I reckon we should go check out some more redstone options. I'm here at another haunted house, and we've got some ghosts floating around here as well. But if we come down here to the graveyard, we're going to check out some redstone options. Ooh, here we have a jumping zombie, and he jumps out of his grave. And if we sneak around this way, I think I see some more magical graves. This trio of graves has some jumping mobs as we walk up to it. Ooh, there we go. Around the other side of the build, it looks like we've got some mobs casting a spell at this witch's cauldron. And if we take a step over this way, hidden in some of these petrified trees, I've placed in some hidden lighting. You can see as I walk by, they turn on using the skulk sensors. This is a really fun way to light up a pathway. I've used the same idea inside to light up my dungeon corridor, and that way when you get to the end of the corridor, the lights start to turn off and it has a very spooky feel. Ooh, and it looks like there might be some mobs sneaking around turning on my lights. Another fun way to decorate your Halloween builds is using some banners, so let's check these designs out. Like all of the builds in this tutorial, all of these banners are survival friendly, so you can create them in any of your spooky worlds. We've got everything from witches and zombies to cauldrons. We've got some Halloween candy and candles, lots of jack-o'-lanterns, and even some ideas like these windows that you can use inside your builds. So let's have another look at these banners. Be sure to comment your favourite design. I really like the witch, and I think the candles are a really fun way to spruce up your builds. Tutorials for all the builds you've seen, as well as the other decorations for Halloween, are in the description down below, so you too can create a witch's hat like this one or an awesome haunted house. So now you have a super spooky looking world. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. And check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me further. Happy Halloween!